2009 Rolling Stone interview with Joss Whedon, reporter David Kushner asked Whedon about fanfiction of his own works. Instead of following the lead of the question and sharing how he felt about all the Buffy fanfic, he instead decided to lavish praise on something completely different. Star Trek New Voyages, a 2004 to 2016 fan-produced continuation of the original Star Trek series. "I'm not a Trekker," Whedon insisted, saying that even despite this, I was riveted. Of course, he was also cheating on his wife at the time, sleeping with actresses under his employ, and was generally a narcissistic, abusive personality, perpetuating the illusion of being a mild-mannered feminist hero. So, maybe we should take what he says with a grain of salt?
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine.
You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away.
During the summer of 2020, when everyone was in lockdown, there began a trend where everyone would watch Star Trek, from the very first episode to the most recent episode. And after seeing some accounts I liked, going through Deep Space Nine and thinking it looked interesting, I decided to join them, and now a big fan of Star Trek. And when I was in Deep Space Nine, I started to notice some patterns. A few episodes really smacked of Buffy.
Delectable. And so are you.
And Firefly.
Cortical stimulators.
Ready the cortical stimulator.
Cortical stimulator.
Pulmonary stimulators and cardiac
infusers. What about cortical electrodes?
And as I kept watching, that just kept happening.
Sexuality is particularly complex. I am willing to explore my humanity. Take off your clothes.
Nicely shaped, and frankly, it's ludicrous to have these interlocking bodies and not interlock. Please remove your clothing now.
I am now convinced that Joss Whedon watched Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise religiously and deliberately copied bits of material from these shows and obfuscated that he's seen them.
I'm a hologram. I can't be harmed.
As a means of making it look like he's this big, masterful storyteller, when he's actually just a guy who watches a lot of Star Trek and then bases a lot of content based on what he's seen.
Kneel before His Majesty. I said, kneel!
Kneel before me. I said.
A lot like a fanfiction writer recomposing material that someone else created.
I've become obsessed with Voyager.
As far as I can tell, I'm the only person online who has ever made this connection. One person made an article suggesting that various episodes of The Next Generation inspired Buffy episodes that I honestly think is a reach. I have only noticed derivation, excepting a few episodes where it's made explicit.
Must shoot both of us. It's the only way to ensure the safety of the Enterprise.
Kill us both, Spock.
From Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise. Especially Deep Space Nine and Voyager, which I attribute to Joss Whedon fans not overlapping a lot with fans of these shows, given that they're the dark horses of the Star Trek series, particularly Deep Space Nine and Voyager, for having unlikable captains due to their marginalizations.
Some people say that you remained on DS9 as the eyes and ears of your fellow Cardassians.
You don't say.
So what do you figure? Shepard's got some kind of connection with the Alliance?
I am a shepherd. Folks like a man of God.
Joss Whedon has made it clear that he's at least seen The Next Generation in the original series. That's where most of the references in Buffy, Angel, etc. point, but he's kind of obfuscated that he's seen Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise, despite, I believe, there being compelling evidence suggesting he has.
That's why the lady is a scamp.
And I need you today, oh Mandy.
Considering the way that Joss Whedon constantly drops references to nerd culture, including esoteric things like Babylon 5 and Red Dwarf, Doctor Who before the revival.
I've seen every episode of Doctor Who. Not Red Dwarf, though, because
it's not out yet on DVD.
The lack of nods to Deep Space Nine, Voyager, etc. Are kind of a conspicuous absence.
What the hell are you talking about?
I'm sorry. Colin may work for Locutus of the Borg here, but I'm freaked out and I intend to stay that way.
Q from Bond, not Star Trek.
Never give up, never surrender.
What? It counts?
Warning. Warp core breach a lot sooner than you think.
Demons have escaped. Please run for your lives.
This could be trouble.
Now, he does allude to a casting controversy in Voyager, where actor Robert Beltran, despite being Mexican-American and not Native American, was cast as a Native American character, Commander Chakotay. In the Dr. Horrible musical commentary, basically his sister-in-law, Marissa Tancherone, an Asian woman, was complaining about Asian roles available to actors in Hollywood are largely stereotypical, and that roles that Asian American actors do want tend to be given to other races. This is presumably something that Marissa Tancherone was ranting about on the set of Dr. Horrible, and Joss Whedon made a song for her to sing about that.
Who do they want before they want an Asian, a Mexican, or an Indian, or an American Indian, played by a Mexican?
But it's unclear if Joss Whedon himself even watched Voyager, given that it's through the mouthpiece of the Asian American woman who's ranting about the Asian roles in Hollywood.
Very good, good. Why were the independents even fighting us? Why wouldn't they look to be more civilized?
Likewise, there is a reference to Enterprise in Buffy, but it's also kind of just about Scott Bakula being topical.
I'm going gay. I've decided I'm turning gay. I'm mentally undressing Scott Bakula right now. That's a start, isn't it?
Captain Archer.
It's unclear how much Joss Whedon really cares about Enterprise based on that clip. However, I will argue that he based a lot of Firefly on it.
All we got left now are hydroponics and NutriPacks. What we used to call them? Mystery meals.
Have a few mystery meals.
Before Joss Whedon made his name with Buffy, Firefly, Dollhouse, all of that stuff, he was known as a script doctor. He would take existing scripts and punch them up, add jokes, massage plot details, but tended not to get his name on the script themselves, given that they were someone else's material.
You don't belong here. You belong with me.
You try to be with him, but you always end up in the dark. With me.
He is responsible for most of the dialogue and speed, but did not change any of the plot details, so his name did not get into the credits. Whereas with Toy Story, he was hired to make Woody more likable and ended up changing a major plot point and got his name added to the credits.
It's party time, Woody! Yeehaw!
What I'm proposing is that he habitually punched up Star Trek and put it into his own shows without citing it, to the degree that it's like if he erased everyone else's name in Speed and put his own name in there, and then just let it appear like he made Speed himself, not citing anyone else.
You got a problem?
I'm 5x5 here, but you live an entirely large. Actually wondering about your problem.
What does 5x5 mean?
It means everything's fine. It's a aeronautics term. It's from the military, I think. I'm not sure if it's just military, but it means, yeah, it's all fine.
Hi.
They use it in Aliens. I have never had an original thought.
Now, Whedon is open about being inspired by Alien and other shows, but not Star Trek, even though I think Star Trek is his biggest point of inspiration. And I think it's because he wants to be seen as this master writer. The guy who can just weave these fantastic narratives sprung full-formed from his head like Athena from Zeus's brow. And actuality, he's just a writer like anyone else, basing things on stories he likes, doing what's effectively fan fiction on a large scale.
If you need anything, replicator rations, a tour of the lower decks, I'm your man.
Who's the man?
You are. A very short, annoying man.
And the thing is, he is this narcissistic egomaniac, and I think he included elements from these shows he likes into his own works as a in-joke, a fanboy homage to a show he loves, while also obfuscating what's even going on. So it's only there for him. His exclusive fanboy homage enjoyment, while everyone else thinks that he's a genius, when he was actually just punching up someone else's work.
Tuvok, I understand. You are a Vulcan man.
Strange, it's not like anything we've faced before.
Examples of this include hiring Deep Space Nine actor Armin Shimmerman to play a recurring role on Buffy, and naming a few episodes similarly to the episodes that seemingly inspired them, like The Pack being inspired by The Passenger, and Checkpoint being inspired by Counterpoint.
Challenger, Checkpoint!
Agent Ballard, you were assigned to case designate Dollhouse over 14 months ago.
Just take a look at my evidence before you decide. The biggest elements of suspected derivation are the Buffy characters Xander and Anya, who resemble Dr. Julian Bashir from Deep Space Nine in his early characterization, and 7 of 9 from Voyager. The Angel mythos, which resembles the Deep Space Nine mythos. And the Firefly characters River, Simon, Wash, and Book, who resemble Kes from Voyager, Bashir in his late Season 5 characterization, Tom Paris from Voyager, and Elam Garak from Deep Space Nine.
I was surprised to learn about 3 years after, or maybe more, after the Buffy series had ended, that I was Buffy. Thought I was Xander.
During the run of the show itself, he made repeated reference to Xander as his self-insert, representing Whedon as a nerdy guy who hangs out with women. This has tended to inform how viewers interpret the character merely as Whedon's self-projection, but I think it's more complicated than that. I think that Xander is based on Dr. Bashir in personality, and when he was stuck into the role of a teen boy that Whedon could relate to, he was developed from that standpoint into a self-insert figure. He resembles Dr. Bashir as a nerdy guy who likes a strong woman in his vicinity, and hopelessly tries to romance her while she is totally not into him, and he can't quite grasp that, which comes off as creepy in the modern day, while the framing suggests that we should find him adorable and regard the strong woman as empowered for being above him. What's most telling to me is that the unaired Buffy pilot portrays Xander as more of the cute, upbeat Dr. Bashir personality, while the first official episode goes through the same dialogue with more of Whedon's own deadpan delivery, like he was updated to be more distinctive as a self-insert figure.
This is where heroes are made. Right here.
What's in it for me?
A shiny nickel.
Okay. Well, what's in it for me?
A shiny nickel.
Okay.
I first noticed this connection when watching Deep Space Nine, Season 1, Episode 9, The Passenger, which resembles Buffy Season 1, Episode 6, The Pack. You can see the title similarity there. Bashir and Xander both struggle trying to impress the strong woman in their life, confront a bad guy, get possessed, and are sent against their teammates. The strong woman overpowers the bad guy controlling them, cures them, and then they're left feeling humiliated by the thought of the strong woman and others knowing that they remember the bad guy possessing them. There is an implication that there's a shameful pseudo-sexual dominance. Like the possession was the bad guy making them his bitch.
His body is fit as a fiddle.
And this is framed as though it elevates the strong woman in contrast. The Passenger has Bashir specifically say that he's embarrassed.
Actually, I feel quite humiliated.
And the Pack has Xander give this weird comedic line,
"Shoot me, stuff me, mount me,"
to indicate the same emotional state, while the episode shooting script explicitly has him say that he feels humiliated. The beats of the episodes are extraordinarily similar, as are their starring characters, and even the titles both begin the P. As for Anya, previous name Anyanka, she resembles 7 of 9, previous name Anika, as a female villain who becomes a good guy and must learn what that means. Both started their lives as humans, but were transformed into non-human monsters, spent a long time like that, and now must relearn humanity. There's a temptation to rejoin their monster family, but find they don't belong, and must be rescued by a strong human woman. Like Xander's personality shift from the pilot, Anya's initial personality in Season 3 resembles Seven's cold, stoic personality, and then she was updated into a more hyper, nerdy personality in Season 5.
I regenerated my alcove. I study the Starfleet database, or I contemplate my existence.
For 1,000 years, I wielded the powers of the wish. I brought ruin to the heads of unfaithful men.
It's tiny grain patties. They're woven. That's craftsmanship.
Anya serves a function like Seven's, most overtly in Buffy Season 5, Episode 11 Triangle, in which her dynamic with Willow strongly resembles Seven's dynamic with B'Elanna Torres in Voyager Season 4, Episode 14, Message in a Bottle. Both act as newbies devoted to the good guy team, while a female member of the team, who has been there since the start, regards them with suspicion, and their personalities clash as they deal with that week's adventure. Meanwhile, one of Anya's more memorable quotes, her emotional breakdown over a friend dying in Season 5, Episode 16, The Body, resembles the Doctor's emotional breakdown over making a choice to save one patient or another in Voyager Season 5, Episode 11, Latent Image. Both are characters who start out as less than human and now must grapple with the harsh philosophical quandaries of being human, associated with mortality.
Why did she have to die? Why did I kill her? Why did I decide to kill her? Why? Somebody tell me why!
I don't understand how this all happens. How we go through this. I mean, I knew her. There's just a body, and no one will explain to me why.
One of the things that most impressed me about Buffy and Angel was the intricate mythology that Joss Whedon made. As much as it's a down-to-earth human drama, it's also an epic adventure story about gods, faith, and the struggle against evil, as personified in various devilish figures. This most comes out in Angel, where the whole show is deliberately plotted out with prophecies and powers that be, with plans for the characters, and a struggle against fate. However, after watching Deep Space Nine, with its very similar but more rudimentary themes and characters, I've come to understand Angel as more Deep Space Nine fanfiction than something sprung whole cloth from Whedon's head. Deep Space Nine has a consistent plot thread involving the presence of the wormhole aliens, beings outside of linear time, worshipped as gods by the Bajorans, who call them the Prophets, for their ability to know what is, to us, the future. After Benjamin Sisko makes contact with them in the series premiere, they select him to be their representative to the Bajorans, who refer to him in this role as the Emissary. Throughout the show, he has visions of the prophets, who give him messages about the future, the past, and even outside the Star Trek universe. More on this in a bit. Of course, being outside of linear time, the prophets technically chose him to be the emissary before he was born. A prophet actually possessed a special human, Sarah, and forced her to have sex with Sisko's father, in a weird bit of rape that's never acknowledged as such, or even presented as horrific. The prophet gave birth to Benjamin Sisko, the human who would become the emissary, and then released Sarah, who left and later died without much fanfare. Benjamin Sisko then becomes the emissary, and in the finale, ascends to the heavens to be with the prophets and become a higher being. That's the Deep Space Nine mythos. Something clunkily put together by different writers in different seasons, and only really developed in a rush at the end. Years later, Joss Whedon made Angel and seemingly tightened and perfected the whole thing. God beings called the powers that be give prophetic visions to Doyle, who assumes a role like the emissary. He has a romance with Cordelia, who has a particular role in the series of ultimately being possessed by one of the powers that be, having sex with a particular special person, and giving birth to a special mythos-connected being. Not a hero this time, but a villain. Jasmine, an Antichrist figure. Originally, I suspect that Cordelia was going to be possessed and have sex with Doyle, the emissary type, to give birth to the special character. However, when Doyle's actor proved unreliable and Doyle was killed off, his emissary role went to Cordelia, and Darla was reintroduced so that she and Angel could produce a special offspring, Connor, for Cordelia to have sex with and produce Jasmine. By the time that Darla's pregnancy storyline came into play, I also suspect that B'Elanna's pregnancy storyline on Voyager became an influence. After Jasmine is born, Cordelia outlives her usefulness in the series and is unceremoniously killed off like Sarah before her. It's cold, but at least the possession and sex is framed as a gross violation by a villain this time, if still not having the guts to call it rape. Instead of a power that is coming down to Earth out of the blue, Cordelia's possession is worked into the mythos, where she first ascends to the heavens to be with the powers that be, like Sisko in the Deep Space Nine finale. It's her attempt to come back that results in a power that is stowing away in her body. There are also characters called the Oracles, who exist outside of time, introduced in Angel Season 1, Episode 8, I Will Remember You, an episode which also draws heavily from Voyager Season 4, Episode 22, Unforgettable. Doyle takes Angel into an alternate dimension where you must pay tribute to lesser god characters who appear to be a link to the powers that be, able to see the future, turn back time, and give Angel insights. It's possible that Whedon intended them to have a bigger role in the show, but when Doyle was killed off and Darla reintroduced, the storyline involving her introduction resulted in them getting killed off too. Those are the main points of derivation, though aspects of the Deep Space Nine mythos litter Buffy and Angel. Deep Space Nine has storylines involving the prophets opposing the Pa-Wraiths, essentially devils who possess people and make their eyes big and red, like Willow's in Buffy Season 6, Episode 16, Seeing Red. Yeah, interesting coincidence, huh? The Deep Space Nine finale has the Pa-Wraiths attempting to escape a fiery prison, similar to Billy in Angel Season 3, Episode 2, That Vision Thing, which they accomplish in a plan involving a fake vision, similar to Lila hijacking Cordelia's visions, also in That Vision Thing. Wolfram and Hart generally serves a similar role as the Paw Wraiths as devil figures, but Whedon made those characters his own. The first evil also bears a few similarities to the Paw Wraiths, communicating in a series of different actors, like the Paw Wraiths do when disguised as the Prophets, also a trait of the Prophets themselves. And enduing Caleb with superpowers the way the Paw Wraiths do with Dukat. In Deep Space Nine, Season 7, Episode 1, Image in the Sand, a hooded Paw Wraith worshipper stabs Cisco the way that the Bringers, the minions of the First Evil, tried to assassinate the Slayers. In the audio commentary for Firefly Episode 12, The Message, actor Alan Tudyk says that, when delivering some comedic dialogue, he ad-libbed the Vulcan salute, but was told to stop. Star Trek is unwanted in Firefly, or so Whedon would make it seem. River's role as a psychic on the ship is similar to Kes's on Voyager. A notable moment of similarity is in the movie 2005 Serenity, where River senses the disaster that befell Miranda, similar to Kes being able to sense the disaster that befell an alien planet in Voyager Season 1 Episode 4 Time and Again. Her apparently nonsensical ramblings in Firefly Episode 7 Janestown, turning out to be a prophecy coming true in The Message, also resembles Benjamin Sisko's apparently nonsensical ramblings in Deep Space Nine Season 5 Episode 10 Rapture, turning out to be a prophecy coming true in Season 5 Episode 26 Call to Arms. The plotline about the mystery of why the Alliance cares about her, that they altered a genius kid to make her psychic and a living weapon, resembles Deep Space Nine Season 5 Episode 6 Dr. Bashir, I presume, in which we learn that Dr. Bashir's parents had him genetically altered to be a Khan-like super genius. Following this episode, Dr. Bashir has a different characterization as a capable genius, pushed to assume a variety of roles, which Simon also resembles as a genius outside of his comfort zone. His fear of space, seen in Firefly Episode 3 Bushwhacked, resembles that of Neelix in Voyager Season 5 Episode 1 Night.
Dizziness, nausea, unspeakable dread.
Yes.
Nilophobia, the fear of nothingness.
I suppose it's just the thought of a little mylar in glass being the only thing separating a person from nothing.
Wash, the jokester pilot, who wears Hawaiian shirts, is married to a strong, aggressive woman, and has an alternate appearance with a mustache, bears a strong resemblance to Tom Paris in Voyager. The jokester pilot, who wears Hawaiian shirts, is married to a strong, aggressive woman, and has an alternate appearance with a mustache. When piloting a shuttle, he sits in a curved alcove, like Wash in Serenity's cockpit. Whedon made the Wash character his own, as a whiny self-insert, with none of Tom's machismo, but there are still similarities apparent. When Saffron seduces Wash with a line about just them and the stars, it bears resemblance to Alice, the thinking ship from Voyager Season 6 Episode 5 Alice, seducing Tom with a line about it just being them and the stars.
Just you, me, and the stars.
Now we're alone, just us and the stars.
Finally, Shepard Book is essentially Elam Garrick in Deep Space Nine, the outcast former torturer spy who pretends to have an innocuous occupation. Both characters are regarded with suspicion, but maintain the fiction, often humorously in cases where the lie is obvious.
You can fix computers?
Oh, I dabbled with isolinear data subprocessors. It's a hobby of mine.
You carry this everywhere with you, do you?
A simple tailoring tool. You'd be surprised how often someone needs their pants let out.
This is precision work. Sharpshooters. From the look of these wounds, I'd say a 54R sniper rifle. Laser sights.
You do a lot of shooting at the Abbey there, Shepard.
Rabbits.
I think Whedon looked at Deep Space Nine and thought it would be a good character, but could be improved by not cluing in the audience that he was a morally gray secret agent right away. Some similar beats are used. In Firefly Episode 5 Safe, Book is shot, the crew go to the Alliance for help, and they reject him until Book shows his ID, and they spring to help him. After they treat him, Book refuses to explain. This resembles Deep Space Nine Season 2, Episode 22, The Wire, where Dr. Bashir takes an injured Garrick to his old superior and demands he provide medical assistance, based on the identity they know he possesses as some kind of secret agent. Even afterwards, the extent of Garrick's lies makes it unclear what the truth is. As for why Whedon wanted Ron Glass for the role, maybe it was because he played a deceptive character on an episode of Voyager, and Whedon liked how he played it. Credit where credit's due, someone else had this theory, but failed to make the connection to other episodes of Voyager. Those are the main examples. There are also a bunch of little elements that seem to have been mined from the series and put into various episodes. Though many of the episodes are not credited to Whedon, Buffy writer Jane Espenson has described the writer's room process as starting with a group discussion to nail down a beat sheet, a list of scenes that accomplish certain storytelling goals, before handing it off to individual writers to compose. We can assume that Whedon had an active involvement in creating the beat sheets, plus many of the writers have said that he would also write specific lines of dialogue in their scripts. So his absence from the credits doesn't mean that much. Every Whedonverse show bears his marks, top to bottom.